Thank you, Anandita. You've been doing a wonderful job. God bless. At the onset, a big thank you to Novel Bunch, Saguna and Hardeep. Thank you for having us and all the topics. Though it's last, but why is it interesting? Why is it that I didn't feel sleepy? Why is it ki dil mange more? Because each and every topic was better than the rest. And last but not least, I would like to compliment all the panelists who've come here and spoken from their heart. Believe you me, it's not easy. I've been doing it. Today, it may seem very simple, but when you do it for the first time, or you tell people about what you've gone through, is not simple. So God bless. And the icing on the cake was that I heard my own wife sitting here and talking to the audience. You know, I've never heard her speaking from this platform. So thank you, Saguna, for getting her over. And Puram, you did a fantastic job. God bless. Right, ladies and gentlemen, when you come down to the last, then the normal question I'm a Fauji is कि खाने में क्या है, चाय में क्या है? What your talk is gone. कितना time लेंगे? So मैं ज़्यादा time नहीं लूँगा. That's a promise. We'll be very brief so that you get down to the brownies and rest of the goodies which Noble Bunch has offered us. So we'll be brief. That's for sure. Now, when I got the invite and when I was included into the Noble Bunch, the topic which came to me was OTT. Believe you me, I didn't know the full form of OTT. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know. You know, I've been seeing Netflix. I see all the serials. I've been seeing Amazon Prime, Hotstar, and I tend to forget. So the first thing that I did was I opened my pen and pad. This is back from the last vacation, which I spent. I got it as a souvenir from there and wrote down OTT. So it says over the top. So I said, all right, samajh mein aaya, over the top. Now, over the top hai kya? It's a streaming media platform which is relayed via the internet and it comes directly to the viewers. Aur isme kya nahi hai? Isme censor nahi hai. Now, when you see something on the TV, when you see something in the cinema, it goes to a censor board. The censor board puts a U, the censor board puts a A. The censor board sometimes doesn't get it to the viewers. But इसमें वो नहीं है. अब अगर इसमें वो नहीं है, तो इसमें कुछ ऐसा है जो शायद थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा है. और सवाल ये है कि वो कितना ज़्यादा है. Last time I offered the mic first to the lady, and now I believe, being enlightened, that ladies are at par. So I will not start with the lady, and I will start with the gentleman, right? So I believe in the woman power, I fully support it. And we have a lawyer who's a very dear friend, and believe you me, the panel, I was just looking up and down to see, have my two panelists arrived? So we've got created a little group. We don't have any questions. We've not exchanged anything. My DP is not there, so they don't know who I am. And yet I said, एक आ गई, दूसरी आ गई, and तीसरा मेरे बाजू में था, तो हम पूरे हो गए. So we start with Manish. We try and make it a little hilarious. It's Saturday night after all, right? So Manish, your views on censorship on OTT, though I know you would like to, you know what we spoke in the thing, but then your views on censorship on OTT.
Censorship on OTT. When you go to a theatre, there is a certificate by the censorship board. It has various UAR, UA. So that signifies people of what age should see it. The typical usher is not supposed to let a child in for an adult. Now this platform is not the theatre, it is other than theatre. It is coming directly into your house. So the filmmaker has a choice that maybe I can put in something which I may not be able to do on a regular screen. Does it need to be censored? That is where the dilemma is. The courts possibly cannot intervene because the court say recently, that's the last case in the Kerala High Court, they said that we cannot curtail the, what is the word? The creative expression of any director or any art, of any art. But how much is too much? So the government has tried, let's kill the censorship, let them say whatever it is. The simplest solution is, if you don't like it, you see too much of violence, sex, language, simple, switch it off, don't see it. But then that exposes your children to something, or somebody who should not be seeing something, and apart from that aspect, it can fuel some other emotions into people. It could be some hatred, it could be some kind of a bias towards a certain section of society, so therefore it needs to be curtailed. So uske liye there is a term, it is called the internet kill switch. Can the government do it? Well, that's a debate which is going to go on. I think the simplest solution to that is, if you're offended by it or if you don't like it, for heaven's sake, don't see it. If you're seeing a movie, apart from that certificate which it has, you're within your rights to get up and leave. I've done it a couple of times. I've seen a movie, I didn't like it, I got up and left. Wasted the money on the ticket. So here, I am paying for something, for that service. I don't like that serial or that movie, I switch it off, I don't see it. So that is one aspect of censorship. It is a self-imposed censorship.
Right. So before I came in today and post lunch, I had a little discussion with two of the people who work in my office. One is a retired Naik who had 2 stripes, and he's got 2 grown-up children, and one was a young girl who worked with me. And I just asked them their views, to get the views from probably a different part of the society also. So the same thing what Manish was just amplifying on was that, switch it off. He says, "Ab bच्चे के पास मोबाइल है, अब वो मोबाइल लेके बाहर जाता है, ये सब चीजें उसमें भी है, मैं उसको कहाँ पे चेक करूँगा? तो अगर ये चीज नहीं होती, तो मेरे तरफ से अच्छा होता." So the girl who was sitting there, she told him, she says, पर जो भी expression है, वो natural तरीके से इस माध्यम के through express होता है. Whatever it is, it reaches. So अब कोई क्या करे या ना करे. So it was a debate. 50% that is were for it, 50% wanted it to carry on. So let's see what our panelists have to say. Ma'am, can I have your views, please?
Yes, sure. And it has been a lovely session, everybody. I'm not going to talk too much because it was a lot of wonderful takeaways. And carrying from what Manish said, I would slightly beg to differ here because when we talk about censorship, the first thought that comes to our mind is a negative connotation that, okay, somebody is putting a stop to our ideas, our opinions, our freedom to expression. But let's not misconstrue the freedom to expression. It does not give any right to freedom to insensitivity, freedom to say profanities on certain religious sentiments, freedom to maybe not even mediocrity, but very, very low level kind of, slapstick that goes on the digital platforms. We need to understand that before there was a talk about censorship, and it's not censorship, it's a regulation. So it's basically self-regulatory mechanism that has been brought in by the government, and it goes by the name of information technology rules. And I think there has to be some kind of a regulation. Now, to what extent? That's a question to be mooted, because a lot of people might say, when you talk about censorship, please understand it means that no unlawful content that is either indecent, that is pornographic, or anything that could harm the minds of the minors, or anything that goes against the national interest or perhaps the public sentiment needs to be aired. The question is, there is a little ambiguity here as to what that public interest and national sentiment would mean. So every time there is a different government, they vote perhaps kind of twist it to their own convenience, and end of it, maybe the official take of what they understand would be what is going to be shared on the screen. But having said that, let's also not forget that digital media is a very, very strong media today. If they could possibly block Donald Trump, so we can well understand how they can possibly manipulate the young, impressionable minds of the youth today. And the religious sentiment might not be too much of a big deal for them, but yes, somehow, unconsciously, I think it kind of brings in a lot of hatred, brings in kind of ridicule and mockery for maybe the minority, for women, for anything for that matter. So I think a bit of regulation is desirable. Now, having said that, the IT rules, the information technology rules that have been brought in also state very categorically that the government is not going to come directly into this entire thing. The first step it's a 3-tiered regulatory mechanism. The first step is basically self-regulation that the platforms themselves would look into. And second thing would be, and if there is a grievance, it's a grievance redressal system. Earlier we did not have a grievance redressal system. So anybody who had a problem with any kind of a serial or program, they would be running from shaft to post to, file a case, and there was no outcome. So at least we have something whereby people can post their grievance and there could be some kind of a logical conclusion. Only at the third level does the government intervene. Again, having said that, please understand that there have been instances, take the case of Red Fort, for example, 2 years back. What happened? We had a barrage of fake news coming over on Twitter. The government did request the CEO of Twitter to make sure that it gets pulled down. It did not. He was very defiant, and perhaps that was the tipping point for this entire self-regulation to come into existence. Now, if these platforms are working in India and are completely oblivious to the sentiments of the people here, I think there needs to be a little moderation and something that needs to be looked into. When we talk about various programs, be it, let's say, there was a lot of hue and cry, remember, about PK, the movie, where the Supreme Court had to intervene and they had to continue with the streaming of that movie because people said it's a religious moderation. Why the hell are people shouting so much? Or, I mean, they have to be a little liberal. But why do you have to show Lord Shiva in urinals? Why do you have to show him crawling in the urinals? I mean, you've all seen what happened in France when Prophet Muhammad was mocked at. And I'm not saying it's religion. What I try to say, there can't be 2 rules. Twitter cannot have 2 rules for 2 different countries. It dare not do that in the United States, but it dares do that in India. So there are certain things that need to be taken into stride, and whether it's Netflix, whether it's Hotstar, because Hotstar has been blamed for a lot of pornography. In the courts, there are a lot of petitions that are going on. Now, we do not take it very seriously because maybe we've normalized it. The OTT platform is not just the freedom to expression. We need to understand in US, UK, children or minors do not have access to these platforms. They need a password every time they need to log in. But we don't have a parental check here in India. You take the mobile of your parents and you have access to every and any platform. And you can see just about anything. Now, I'm not for censorship, truly, because children can find ways to wriggle out of this and find various other ways to find the content that they need. But yes, a little regulation is required.
Thank you, ma'am. Neeti ma'am, your views, please.
Very good evening to everybody. I will not go into the technicalities as ma'am has already explained that. I'll come nearer home. In my house, I have my mom-in-law, who's about 82. I have my father, who's about 85. And I have a daughter, who's about 16. And I have an elder one who thinks she knows it all. She's 21. So in a pack house like that, with my husband coming and going for business, regulating 4 different age groups, a 16-year-old feels that, well, nobody can censor me. A 21-year-old knows that there are problems, which you should not. So she's a little more aware and is a little more conscious because she's gone through that stage. And then you have an 82-year-old who's watching all kinds of serials on maybe Netflix and is paranoid about the crime that can happen and the help who is in the kitchen. As soon as she goes out, दरवाजा बंद करो, इसको कोई लड़का मिलने आएगा, ये अंदर ला सकती है, मैं तो ग्राउंड फ्लोर पे हूँ, इधर मेरे को मार जाएंगे, तुमको सुबह पता लगेगा. So that happens. With my father, who's again a retired Fauji, his mindset is different. So he will, in the evening at dinner time, he'll be telling me, today the government said this, and I think it's a good move. I think these clowns, they're doing this, they're doing that. So I don't know what kind of YouTubes he's watching. He's watching anything and everything, and I hear him watching somebody on talk shows from Pakistan, and then he has this narrative of pro-India going on. And so it's a house full where you really don't know what is actually happening, because the only one left who's not watching actually is me. So now when we talk of censorships, it's a very serious business, because as a 16-year-old and a 21-year-old who's gone out of this stage, is much maturer, is in college, not staying at home. So she's seen a little bit of the world and is much more aware how to deal with it. Now this 16-year-old has a mobile, has a laptop, and has a screen which she doesn't use most of the time, because she wants to have her privacy on that laptop with that phone. And as soon as you enter their room, they are like, they don't want, why are you watching what I'm watching? So that kind of thing is happening all the time. Now the question is, how are you going to take that stranger out of your child's bedroom? That is where the problem comes in. Although mere kare, the doors are the ones I grew up with, they have plain glass. So my daughter says, why did you put plain glass? You wanted to censor us? That is why we have plain glass. So all the time I have to put the curtain. So that is where the problem comes, is how do you get that guy out of the bedroom? You are asking your child to go out and come back by 9:30. But there's somebody in her bedroom or his bedroom throughout the night. Your child is going through insomnia. When they're going to school or college, there is a stress on them that they're going late, and it's repeatedly happening. Other than that, you will see them binging into food. Middle of the night, you see somebody's going down, and you walk into the kitchen, some sandwich, something is going on, and if you don't go down in the morning, when you walk into the kitchen, you will see some cockroach there. So that is the second problem, that you're binging. You are not regulating a health pattern. So I'm not concerned how much they are watching at this point. The thing is that you're not eating well, you're not sleeping well, the thing that a youngster needs to do for their own health. It's a long run that sequence is not just youngsters which is happening like this. It's 30 years down the lane what is going to hit you badly. You don't want to go out and play because there is something you wanted to watch along with the friends. Now there's a team watching, okay? You're sharing, and then you all sit together to watch that one movie or one serial at a certain point of time. Some friend of yours has shifted to Canada, she will also come to your time, or you will go to her time. So it is not simply how to regulate technically through governments. I know there are contents which are violating, which are abusive, and there are a lot of incidents which we can go through papers as well as other news media where people have done kidnapping, people have done various kind of things. Abuse is not just verbal that is happening, it's much more than that. Because you feel if that guy in that series could get away, so can I. So now you are bringing up there's a conflict between the morality that you want in your child and the morality that is filtering into your homes through those channels. Now that's a conflict again. You can either preach or you can teach. Now how are you going to teach that part? So moderation again, either आप net बंद करोगे या access phone आप limitations करोगे. So it is a problem, and then you're sending your child to a school which is allowing the child to have a laptop and access to the net again in the school. So lately they have started taking the phones away from the child, and the child will get the phone only at chutti time. So it's a civic society that has to somewhere we need to work that out, how we are going to get out of this. This is the next war frontier, I feel, that is happening right there in our homes. So there is an elder one who tells me that there's so much to learn. She's doing interior architecture, and she says there's so many things I can learn from there. But there's a younger one who will follow any friend that this is what everybody is watching, so I need to watch. I want to be up with them, that I do the same thing. So, you know, home is at war, unfortunately.
Very beautifully put in simple words of that of being a mother, or being a daughter, being at home and seeing the practical problems. So now we heard the legal standpoint from the eminent lawyer. We heard the technical point as well as what is happening in other countries, and we heard the practical points of what happens at home. So now let's do a small little exercise before Anandita gives me that wave to say that time is up. You are the regulatory body for the OTT, and quickly rattle out your plan of action of how you can see it being regulated in our very own country. I'll start with you, Manish. In brief, so that we back off in time.
At the borders of my country, I have General Mandeep sitting here, Brigadier Dylan, you, Ashish, and various other, Colonel Manish, sitting here, who are guarding my borders. They're protecting me from an invasion. I need to be protected from an invasion from the skies, which can come in unannounced, come in at any time, attack my children or anybody. It has to be regulated. No form of regulation can be complete. It is not perfect. In my 33 years of practice, I realized one thing, that the Supreme Court is not final because it is right. It is right because it's final. We don't have anything beyond that. So therefore, no regulation can be perfect. The only regulation which can work is a self-imposed regulation. I should have the sensibility, I should have taught my children well that this is not good content for me. And by good content, I don't mean pornography per se. It could be various other things. This is not good, switch it off. As a parent, if I see my child behavioral patterns being altered, I need to step in and regulate that. I need to be the regulator, he needs to be the regulator for himself, and then kill that there and then. You can't blame the government for everything. And that is the reason why most of us do get married. Can't blame the government every time.
So I actually second that, because, but then another thing is that self-regulation is the need of the hour, of course. Moral policing would not work because we're living in such times. So maybe debating, discussing and talking about the topics that are considered to be taboo in schools and colleges and universities is the need of the hour. So let children be talked to about sensitive topics. Let them be open about the discussions. Why do we need to shy away from talking about things only in the confines of our four walls of the drawing rooms? So it should be made mandatory to talk about the perspectives, different perspectives. What are the pros and cons, so that when you bring logic into play, children understand. When you merely say don't, they will definitely do. So the self-regulation, yes, a lot of education and the way we perceive the things to be at the present times. And maybe one more thing that perhaps would put people at ease is an independent self-regulatory body rather than the government being the intermediary. So I think when you have an independent body who's checking the regulation or the OTT platform, everybody would be at ease. Because we have the print media, which is regulated by the Press Council of India. We've got the television channels and the newspapers even being regulated, so why not the OTT platform? So if everybody has to be on the same level playing field, there has to be a regulatory body. You can't just say, okay, nothing has to be done here. We have to make sure that there is a regulation, but along with that, a little education and perhaps a new kind of, like we heard, learning, unlearning and relearning has to take place. Thank you.
Ma'am.
there are few things attached with the censorship. The children always find a, I'll speak as a mother, children will always find a way. My friends used to ask me, you're on this? I say, wherever my children go, I kind of download that app. So I'm like that one of those dogs on the street who will go hunting for food. So I go everywhere where my child goes. So that is the only way to know what they are doing, but not talk directly, but indirectly, so that they don't feel offended. But when they are with the friends at home or they are at some other place, openly talking about whatever that topic might be, which was taboo when I was growing up, is no more a taboo. And then I always tell mothers who say, nahi, aise kyun karna? I say, please take out Arthashastra of Chanakya and please read that book to have an open horizon into what actually the society was at that time and what we have brought it down to, so that we have the clarity of how openness has to be used by us to protect. We cannot protect our children all our lives, but we can only help them build themselves up to know the right and the wrong.
Very well said. Yeah, I'll just come to you.
Sir, I'll just add one point
Yeah.
here. We need to understand that we are talking of a generation that is being brought up in very different times. So the kind of thoughts that they have are going to be very different from what kind of thought processes we've been grown up, in. So we have to give them that, the kind of, we have to have faith in their sensibility also, because in my 30 years of education sector, I have had such wonderful care. I've always been talking to them. And I think today when I meet them over the years, the first thing that they say is, ma'am, we always remember what you said that was not confined to the textbooks, but was beyond the textbooks. I think how you touch the emotional chord in the children and how do you make them think how to think is what is the need of the hour. Thank you.
Very well said. And I'd like to add a small little thing. Like, we are all part of this novel bunch, and those who are not, I'm sure the moment you get a chance, you're going to be involved in it. Why not carry this platform to schools and colleges and, involve the young minds into discussions like this? Involve them, be passionate about them. After all, it's our country, it's our children. So this kind of thing, and maybe one can be pioneers in this field and carrying it to these schools. And they in turn make a human cycle. They carry it to certain underprivileged schools. एक ने किसी की मदद की, उसने किसी और की मदद की. And maybe we spread the message and feel that we do a better job. Can I take on a question? I have one gentleman, in case we are not late.
You're cutting into brownie time.
I'm cutting into brownie time, but he's been raising his hand since a long time. One question.
No, it's not a question. I just want to share my experience. I'm a father of 2 daughters, and
Same problem.
same problems. But I like to share one thing. I'm an engineer MBA. My wife is an advocate here in Chandigarh for 23 years, and both my daughters are going to a school, good school, and their schools have psychologists just to take up such or maybe some similar problem. So what Sir Ganu sir said in the last sentence, like India is such a huge country with such a huge population. What about my children are going to a good school in Chandigarh. We are educated parents. We come across the similar problems. We try to gel with them, make them sit with us, try to handle situation in a different manner. What about what Sir rightly highlighted about such a huge country and underprivileged schools, and there are so many children coming from the backgrounds whose parents are not well educated, and this mobile phone is with everybody's hand nowadays. How to handle that problem?
Can I just add to that?
Okay.
I was at one time dealing with slum children with a school, and we had a combined classroom ranging between 3-year-old to a 16-year-old, and we had a home visit once a month. And the reality check was shocking to me that there is a family of this young girl who was coming to my classroom, who was about 9 years old. And the whole family was sharing that one toothbrush. I mean, I was immune to that reality living in Chandigarh, happening in Chandigarh. Now I take my children to sensitize them. Now this younger one of mine is about 5 years old. So I thought on this next trip I'm going to take these, and these two girls, they had lost their mother and father and staying with the extended family. So I take them and they offered pani. And I know that, you know, you might get diarrhea or something because we are used to ROs. So I said, chai de denge. I thought it's boiled because I don't want to offend the family. Now this younger one of mine goes into their room, and while we come home, she says they are richer than us. So I said, how? She says they have a phone which the girls can use, and they have two computers. Maybe somebody's discard, but they have two computers, and you don't give us any of these things. You know, so that hit. And again, now there's a child in that same slum bracket who's got a phone and is watching anything and everything and is misconducting in the classroom. Now I will not contain this to a guy who's coming from those stressed out families. This also happens in regular schools, you know, and we have to understand as a nation that children are an investment of the nation. They are a resource. Like Canada treats their children as a resource, and if any parent, you know, is trying to overstep, hitting or anything, the state steps in and tells them this is a state property. So somewhere, you know, we have to treat children as a resource and an investment for the nation.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm saying, like, we involve our daughters in all type of discussions, and we involve them with us, so that we discuss and we make them aware of everything before they learn it from outside.
Yeah, got your point. So we won't take on anything else because it's time to say adios till we meet again.
I would just like to say I'm very proud to have Sakshi here. Who has
That's
been
what I
my
was going to
student
say.
when I started my teaching long time ago.
Anju ma'am
Such
was
a
my
pleasure.
class teacher in
know.
Sacred Heart
And though
in
it makes me
Amritsar.
feel very old,
I was about to say.
And you're doing very well. We're proud of you.
I'm very proud.
So I would like to thank the panelists, lovely views. Thank you organizers. Now looking forward to that cup of tea. And before you go, let's exchange numbers. We are part of a group. We may not know a few names. So let's do that over a cup of coffee. It was wonderful being here. God bless and Godspeed. Yeah, applause for the organizers to Noble Bunch. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.